Coming up on today's show, I want to run through the top 5 moves the Falcons have made so far this offseason, and my rankings for them going from 5 down to 1. So let's start at number 5, which I'm going to go with drafting Bralen Trice. Now, for all the longtime viewers here on the channel, it's no secret that I've been somewhat critical of Atlanta's offseason decisions, or sometimes lack thereof decision-making and acquisitions, but I'm going to put the third-round draft pick from Washington at the number 5 spot. Was he at the top of my edge rusher target list going into the draft? No, he wasn't, but this is definitely a player that I've kind of warmed up to, and I've started to look at more of a half-glass full approach. Now, the 74th overall pick out of Washington was one of the most efficient pass rushers in college football the last 2 years. His 16 sacks since 2022 ranked 9th in FBS and 4th overall in Power 5. He also led the FBS in pressures back-to-back years, according to Pro Football Focus. Now, that's a great stat, and it's a really cool stat. It's a nice stat, right? However, I do caution people just to tap the brakes a little bit about pressures in college football from Pro Football Focus, because when you look at the list of guys since 2016 and toss out 2020 because not everyone played a fair amount of games, it's filled with people you probably have never heard of. Like, let's just be honest, I don't think I go to bed at night thinking, how are we going to stop James Lynch on Sunday? No. So it's a great list to be a part of, but it's not a list that has proven to be a great one in terms of production on Sundays. Now, when we look at Trice's profile, 6'3", 245 pounds, 4.72 40-yard dash. Bralen Trice does not jump out to me as a physical specimen made in a lab. But when you actually put the tape on and you watch college football on Saturdays, and I often think that during the NFL offseason and we get through the draft process and the pre-draft process, people lose sight of what they thought when football was going on in the fall, and they often get mesmerized by height, weight, speed. When you actually watch Bralen Trice play last year, he was awesome. Like, he was an extremely violent pass rusher. Is he the fastest guy in the field? No. Is he going to have a wicked, quick first step? Probably not. Is he someone you don't want to go up against? Absolutely. Bralen Trice, 7 sacks, 11.5 tackles for loss. He was a tough SOB. He was someone that no tackle looked forward to playing 4 quarters. So I'll sign up for that in round 3 of the draft. Now, before we look at the next 4 spots on my list, if you are excited for a new era of Falcons football, which Raheem Morris, Kirk Cousins, brand new life and blood in the building, hit that thumbs up button. It's July 1, which means we are only 3 weeks and change away from NFL training camp breaking ground. So make sure to like today's video if you're excited for the direction the Falcons are headed. Speaking of direction the Falcons are headed, coming in at number 4, I'm going to go with Raheem Morris. Now, I'm not going to try and stand up here and lie to you guys and say Raheem Morris was my number 1 target from the start of the coaching search. He was in my top 5 list, but ultimately, everyone raves about Raheem Morris. He has such a great character and work ethic to him, and just the ability to create great relationships with people. Everyone wants to come work for Morris or play under Raheem Morris. And those types of characteristics to coaches often get lost because we evaluate coaches mostly just by wins and losses. And at the end of the day, that is the most important thing when it comes to evaluating head coaches. But that's not the only thing you look for when you're hiring a head coach. And Raheem Morris is a terrific human being. So I'm excited for Raheem Morris. I felt like he was deserving of a second crack at a head coaching gig. Didn't go super well at Tampa Bay, but you know what? Bill Belichick had a head coaching job before he was in New England. Pete Carroll had a head coaching job before he was in Seattle. There are a lot of really good coaches who got it right the second time. Because just like in any other profession, you learn from your mistakes. Now, other jobs don't fire you as dramatically as head coaches get fired, but that doesn't mean that they can't learn from the mistakes that they made the first go around. So I'm a big believer in Raheem Morris getting a second opportunity to be a head coach, and I'm excited to see what he can do in Atlanta. At number 3, I'll go with signing wide receiver Darnell Mooney. Another move that I understand a few months ago, these were not moves that I was, doing backflips over, but I do like Darnell Mooney a lot as a player. That 3-year, $39 million contract did seem on the high end for a guy coming off a career-low receiving season, a little over 400 yards. But the guaranteed money pretty much makes this a 2-year, $26 million contract worth $13 million a season. Now, he was a fifth-round pick out of Tulane back in 2020, and I think COVID knocking out much of college football kind of created some players to slip through the cracks a little bit, and not having the traditional pre-draft process, I should say, leading up to the 2020 draft. So that caused Mooney to fall to round 5, and because of that, he's actually in a really cool company. I like to give you guys cool stats and facts and whatnot. And since 2010, there are only 4 wide receivers who were picked in rounds 5 through 7 that had over 1,000 receiving yards in either their first or second season in the NFL. Puka Nacua in year 1, Darnell Mooney in year 2, Tyreek Hill in year 2, and Antonio Brown in year 2 as well. So, I mean, if you can be on a list with these guys, even if we have to put a lot of parameters in, rounds 5 through 7, over 1,000 yards, one of your first 2 years in the NFL, we're kind of going down a rabbit hole. Oh, is Slovenia about to score? I'm watching the Euros right now. Oh, what a save! Oh, follow-up shot, no good. But still, I think this is going to be a really cool signing for the Falcons because last year, sure, 414 yards. If you're just going box score hunting, it doesn't look like that's going to be a home run move. But back in 2021, putting together 1,000 yards and just kind of gutting out a Bears offense that didn't have the best aerial attack, I think the big lesson Atlanta needs to learn from Chicago is Darnell Mooney is not a slot wide receiver. Is he some monster 6'6" jump ball guy? No, he is not. But look at the production that has dropped off for Darnell Mooney since the Bears used him primarily as a slot receiver his last 2 years compared to his first 2 years. I ultimately also believe Darnell Mooney will be a good fit for Kirk Cousins. You think about what Kirk Cousins did so well in Minnesota. It was those play-action fake passes, going deep, unloading it, and Mooney's got the speed to get into the second level, and you can just kind of feel the chemistry that's going to grow between these two guys as the season gets cooking and underway. Plus, we know that Kirk Cousins was a big fan of Darnell Mooney, may or may not have allegedly tried to lure him down to Atlanta, so if Kirk Cousins wants to play with the guy before free agency gets underway officially and he's even signed to the team, that definitely speaks volumes to what the quarterback thinks he can do or work with to be as successful as possible. Time for some Falcons trivia, though, to break up the video. What was the last wide receiver duo to go over 1,000 receiving yards each in the same season? So I need 2 Falcons wide receivers, both getting over 1,000 yards, both in the same season. Give me those 2 wide receivers down in the comment section. Coming in at number 2, I'm going to go with trading for Rondale Moore. Now, I don't think Rondale Moore is going to have nearly as big of an impact as Darnell Mooney, Raheem Morris, and probably Bralen Trice. Maybe you can make an argument for Bralen Trice. But the reason why I've got Rondale Moore's trade at number 2 is you got something for Desmond Ritter. Like, Desmond Ritter was more or less a dead man walking. I think Ritter's got a good shot of having a nice backup career in the National Football League. The stats last year were bad. The turnovers were awful. But when you actually watched him on Sunday, he did make some nice high-level throws down the field. But ultimately, the death of him was the inability to protect the football. So for the Falcons just to get anything for a guy that was going to be a backup third-string quarterback, especially, I mean, at the time we didn't know that they were going to go and draft Michael Penix, but knowing that now, just to get a former second-round pick for a third-string quarterback, value alone, it's hard not to be excited about this. If Rondale Moore does not amount to much this year and he only spends one season with the Falcons and puts up 400 yards and 2 touchdowns, all right, whatever. But, I mean, you're not losing anything from having Desmond Ritter off the roster. There's only upside to this trade for the Falcons. So I'm super excited for Rondale Moore this upcoming season. He's going to bring not some speed that's lacking from the offense because you got Darnell Mooney and you got Kyle Pitts. Sure, Drake London's not like the fastest guy in the world, but he's no slow-mo either. But still, 4.28 40-yard dash, tied for 7th across all players at the NFL Combine since 2020. Yeah, he's going to be involved in a lot of fun play designs for sure. Before we look at the number 1 move of the offseason, you could probably guess what it is. What's the best beach or lake summer vacation spot? I'm going on a trip to Galveston, Texas next weekend. You could probably tell by my tone of voice I did not pick Galveston, but I'm a bit of a prisoner, not a leader in this adventure. So let me know your favorite beach or lake summer vacation spot. And if anyone watching has been to Galveston before, please give me some recommendations below. I've got a reservation for the Rainforest Cafe. That is the height of luxury for my summer vacation. All right, coming in at number 1, signing Kirk Cousins. This has to be the number 1 move the Falcons have made this offseason. I would love for there to be edge rusher signing or something else of that nature on this list, but the reality is I wish the Falcons made some more moves at other positions, but they didn't. But adding Kirk Cousins has to be the best move they made this offseason. 4-year, $180 million deal. It's the largest contract given out in Falcons history. The biggest one Matty Ice ever got was a 5-year, $150 million contract. Now, of course, this is just the nature of, basic economics with prices, inflation just continuing to rise year after year. You're going to see bigger contracts as we get further down the line in NFL history. But when you look at the kind of marquee quarterback moves during the offseason before the draft, I think Kirk Cousins is the best of the bunch. Sure, these other moves didn't go for $180 million, but I'd rather have Kirk Cousins for that price than what the Raiders got Gardner Minshew for. Same for Sam Darnold. Now, there was no denying that I was a big fan of Justin Fields, and I still am a believer, but at this point, might as well buy in on Kirk Cousins. So I think of all the trades and the signings that happened for starting quarterbacks or high-level backup quarterbacks, I think if you could have all 32 teams pick their favorite one, it would be Kirk Cousins. So we're going to get a good look at Captain Kirk for hopefully the next 2, 3, 4 seasons if all goes well. He came off a really strong start to the year from the box score perspective. Did not necessarily translate to wins, though, for Minnesota. But it's hard to blame a guy with 18 touchdowns and 5 interceptions in the first 8 games of the season for the team not being more successful. You can take it one step further. We've shared this next graphic before. Kirk Cousins compared to all Falcons quarterbacks, Mariota, Ritter, Heineke, since 2022, he just dunks on them. 47 touchdowns to 34, 19 interceptions compared to 25. Yeah, the Falcons are going to get a massive upgrade at the most important position in all of sports. So whether or not Kirk Cousins was your first pick, it's hard not to be upbeat about what he can bring to this team that has been sorely lacking since, I would say, Matt Ryan in 2020. 2021 Matt Ryan was a bit of an old Yeller scene. Okay, it's kind of coming to an end here. The real old Yeller was with the Colts, but it's been bad quarterback play for 3 straight seasons. That should turn around dramatically this year. Before we look at our trivia question, if you want to get yourself this Falcons t-shirt combo set, it's on sale right now, chatsports.com/Falcons combo. I put this link in the comments and the description of today's video. So get it today because these sales from Fanatics, they tend to come and go. All right, let's wrap up the video by checking out our Falcons trivia question. What was the last wide receiver duo to go over 1,000 yards each in the same season? Now, there are some actually pretty good guesses here. If you're thinking Julio Jones, you're thinking right. It's just a question of who was the other guy to get over 1,000 yards, which hopefully we could see Drake London and Darnell Mooney do that this season for Atlanta. But the correct answer is Julio Jones and Roddy White. This was one of those classic don't overthink it. Now, you could make an argument for, I could see why Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones would be a good guess. But the two just did not overlap enough to get 1,000 yards each. So, back to 2012, Julio Jones, Roddy White. They went off that year, by the way, the two of them. Not just over 1,000 yards, over 1,100 yards for one and 1,300 yards for the other. All right, that will do it for us on today's show, unless you want to watch me watch the PKs for Portugal and Slovenia. But I do love when people get to watch videos like this, knowing the result of the sport, because it's you're sitting on your couch thinking, oh, P doesn't know that this one's going to be an absolute classic of a finish. So we'll sign off, and we'll see you guys later.